Welcome to How to Stop Being the Best Kept Secret in Your Niche. This is Seth Green, your host, and I am here to share with you some really cutting edge magical marketing. What if the top thought leaders in your industry took your call, endorsed you, sent out emails and social media posts on your behalf? What would that do for your reputation in the industry? What would that do for your business? What would that do for your bottom line? Stay tuned till the end because I will show you how for free you can get on my top rated podcast right next to Dan Kennedy, Roland Fraser, Joel Comm, and lots of other thought leaders. First, I'd like to ask you to playful out, pay attention. Hopefully you have downloaded and printed out the podcast action guide and you've got it right next to you to take good notes. So please turn off your email, turn off your phones, and turn off social media for just a few minutes during this presentation so that you get the most out of it. Who am I? Why should you listen to me? In case you don't already know, I have written 5 best-selling books. And my 6th book just got picked up by a major publisher. So I'm excited that next year it'll be in Barnes & Noble, which is a dream come true for me. I am the only person who's been fortunate enough to be nominated by Dan Kennedy 3 years in a row, back to back for his prestigious Marketer of the Year award. And I've been featured in real media like the Wall Street Journal, CBS Money Watch, CNN, NBC, the Boston Globe, Miami Herald, just to name a few. But it didn't start out that way. You know, nobody's born knowing all this stuff, right? So I started out as a Syracuse Orangeman. Yes, I know we didn't quite win the championship this year, but we got pretty close. And I was at 18, my undergraduate degree was in theater. I literally at 18, my life goal was to be a Broadway star. And you see how that worked out. I'm going to tell you why for just a second. My senior year, 2 of my friends and I decided to produce an interactive murder mystery musical called The Mystery of Edwin Drood by Charles Dickens that you've never heard of for a very good reason. And that was our first mistake. Our second biggest mistake was that we got funding from the student government to fund the musical. But 6 weeks from opening night, we found out that the bylaws of SU prohibited a first-year organization such as ourselves from receiving so much money. So they took half my budget back, and I had a choice of closing the show or coming up with an alternative means to financing the show. Well, if you've seen Top Gun with Tom Cruise, you remember the bald, cigar-chomping admiral guy right here saying to Tom Cruise, "Son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash." Well, unfortunately, that's what I did. I decided that my ego wouldn't let me close the show. So I said, guys, I got this great idea. What if we charge the show on our credit cards and then we'll make the money back selling tickets? And my friend said, that's great. We don't have credit cards, but you go ahead and do that. I said, okay, just as long as you guys know that if we don't sell all the tickets, you're going to go get credit cards and transfer the money. So we each have 1/3 of the debt. And they said, sure, no problem. And I believed them. Well, so we had a show nobody had ever heard of. And I knew nothing about marketing back then in terms of selling tickets. So that was my second mistake. And well, third mistake actually, because I borrowed the money on my credit cards. And the problem was I didn't know anything about marketing. We did not sell very many tickets. So I went to my friends and I said, listen, we owe all this money. I need you to go ahead and get your share and get credit cards. And they went to their parents and said, Mom, can we go get credit cards and to pay Seth back? And they, of course, said, no way, we didn't agree to that. So I got stuck holding all of the debt in my own name. And I had no way to pay it back. So I had to go bankrupt. And it really sucked. I thought it was the worst day of my life when the bankruptcy trustee was looking down his bifocals at me and saying, I'm sorry, son, I don't understand. This application says this is for a musical. Explain that one. Normally people go bankrupt over medical bills and stuff like that. Explain this one to me. And that my story did not go over too well. So what I decided was maybe this producing thing wasn't for me. And maybe instead, because I had just borrowed a bunch of money to gamble on something I knew nothing about, that maybe I should become a different career choice and become a financial advisor. That's a logical career choice, right? Logical shift. So I went to work for AG Edwards, which is a Fortune 500 financial services company that doesn't exist anymore because it's been bought out twice since I worked there. However, at the time, there were 6,700 advisors, and I was ranked 6,700th. I was on the bottom because I was brand new, and my branch manager said, here's what you're going to do. I got a book for you where all your clients are going to come from the entire career. I said, awesome, I'm going to get a Ferrari. This is going to be great. I'm going to be rich. And he reached behind his desk and literally handed me the phone book. That thud was the phone book. And I didn't know any better. And he said, they're all in there, Tiger, go get them. So I made 300 cold calls a day, interrupting strangers, asking them for money. I think a few of you on this call hung up on me. Thank you so much. Until something changed. And what happened was, in my spare time, I'm a professional magician. And I was reading a magic magazine. Yes, magicians have trade journals. And in it was a full-page ad for a marketing course for magicians by a guy by the name of Dave D. And I went to my parents and said, I don't have any money. Can you buy this for me as my birthday instead of my birthday present? And they said yes. I used other people's money. I got the course. I implemented the course. I took action. And in 30 days, I was the busiest, most expensive magician in Buffalo, where I live. So boy, did it work. So I contacted Dave D, who sold me the course. I said, would this work in my real job as a financial planner? He said, yes. I said, where'd you learn it? He said, Dan Kennedy. So some time goes by. I meet my wonderful soulmate. She and I get married. We buy a house. We have our first baby. And I'm still cold calling. And I decide to go, talk to Dan. And Dan says, you're doing everything the industry taught you, which is wrong. Write me this really big check and I'll change your life. I'm shortening his pitch. It was a lot better than that, but you get the idea. So I went home to my wife and I said, honey, I know a year ago we got married. 9 months ago, we bought our first house. 3 months ago, we had our first baby. And 3 weeks ago, you quit your job to be a stay-at-home mom of our son, Max. And I'm the sole breadwinner making cold calls. And oh, by the way, I'd like to go borrow a whole bunch of money to go hire this guy, Dan, which was not the best sales pitch I've ever given because she said no. But 30 days later, after asking her every day for 30 days, she finally said, you better pray this works. And she let me go do it. And boy, did it work. Dan quadrupled my revenue in the first 2 years, which was unheard of in financial services. I went from the 6,700th rep to the top 30 in the country for opening new accounts based on what Dan had done for me. So it got me written about in 3 best-selling books for financial advisors. I was profiled in the #1 industry trade journal for financial advisors, registered rep. And my phone started ringing with all these advisors who said, I want to do what you did. How do I do it? And I said, Dan, what do I do? And he said, you start a marketing company, you go do this for other people. And so I did. And that was 8 years ago. It started out as just me and one client who was a financial advisor and has since branched out. And we are now an office building full of an amazing team. And we help thousands of folks in every kind of industry in every country. So it's been an amazing journey. So let's talk about what you're here to learn tonight. That's how I've earned the right to tell you this. Let's talk about how to stop being the best kept secret in your niche by using a podcast and a book. I don't want to assume anything. Get your action guide out. #1, a podcast is like a blank on your phone. It's like a radio show on your phone. And I happen to also have a top-rated podcast, Direct Response Marketing, which I'd love you to listen to and subscribe to and give us a 5-star review on iTunes. And we produce quite a few shows for our clients, and we're going to talk about how that works. #2, Apple CarPlay. CarPlay will cause the number of podcast listeners to triple in the next 4 years. So right now, there's 1 billion people listening to a podcast. That's 1 billion with a B. That's going to go to 3 billion in the next 4 years because every new car, when your car turns over and you buy a new car, it's going to come pre-bundled with the Apple Podcast interface. So even if you don't have an iPod, iPhone, iMac, or you're going to have an iCar, whether you like it or not. So That's why the time is now to take advantage of this. This is the new ground floor of podcasting. There are going to be 3 billion people listening. You want to make sure you show up where they are. So iTunes is not a social network. Number 3, iTunes is a media platform. iTunes is a media platform. Now, some of the myths I hear that I want to get rid of right off the bat is the only way to build relationship with thought leaders is to pay them lots of money to be in their mastermind groups or go to their live events. Now, you could do that. You could build relationships by paying somebody 25 grand a year to be in their mastermind group and then ask them to do business with you, or pay and spend 3 grand to get tickets to go to their events. That you could do that. However, most thought leaders are constantly looking for more exposure. So adding value by having them on your podcast is the fastest way to get in the door. It doesn't cost you anything. Works much better than getting on a plane or joining a, once a quarter mastermind group. So for example, I'm sorry, this image is stretched out, but if you go to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast, you'll see some of the amazing folks I've had the good fortune to build relationships with and interview on my podcast. Russell Brunson, Roland Frazier of Digital Marketer, Perry Marshall, Sally Hogshead, Larry Benet, Dr. Ivan Meisner. All of these folks I would not have without a podcast. Another thing people ask me all the time is, doesn't it matter how many listeners you have? And the answer is it really doesn't, because podcasting is so new that nobody knows to care about this yet. Now, for example, John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire is doing my show next month. He knows, one of the top podcasters in the world, he asks for my metrics before he agreed to do my show. But in your marketplace, in a local marketplace or in a national marketplace that isn't filled with podcasting experts, nobody knows to ask. For example, this is the Outdoor Boardroom by our client, Gary Okino, who is a golf coach. And he interviews top CEOs to share golf business and life lessons on the podcast. And he's had guests who run really large companies who did the show when he had, his second episode that had 10 listeners. And, one was his wife and the other 8 worked for me. So the media departments, they don't know to ask yet. The average practitioner, the average business owner, whoever you're trying to get to, most likely isn't going to ask how many listeners you have because they don't know to ask yet. So you want to take advantage of this while this is still true. And people often tell me, oh, they won't promote, the thought leaders in my niche, they won't promote you unless you have a big list that you can promote for them. And that totally makes sense. And it's true if it comes to a joint venture email swap. They email for me, I email for them. You got to have comparable list sizes. That makes sense. But it's not true when it comes to podcasting, because not everybody has a podcast. And not everybody's asking how many listeners you have. So for example, I did a show interview for someone's podcast earlier today. They're doing my show in 2 weeks. They didn't ask me how many listeners I have. I did ask them, but they didn't think to ask the question back. It wouldn't have mattered. I've got enough now. But back in the beginning, again, it doesn't matter. And I want to show you something else. This is, so Dr. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, the world's largest referral networking organization, has appeared on my show. I have also appeared on his show. We did a show swap. Here's the interesting thing. If you type Ivan Meisner into BNI, my show where I interviewed him comes up number 1 is an episode, and number 2 is a show. Ivan has over 438 episodes with his name on them, but mine ranks higher because it's all about what you know about how to work the podcasting algorithm and how you do the podcasting game to get your podcast to rank higher in the Apple Store. And I told him, I said, listen, I sent him the screenshot and I said, who's doing your marketing, your podcast? I think it should be us because I shouldn't rank higher than you for your own name. So let's say you want referrals. Well, this is an example of how a podcast and a book work to get you referrals. This is John Cito, who is a certified divorce financial analyst and who wants referrals from divorce attorneys in New Jersey where he practices. Well, he couldn't get in any other way. He tried buying them lunch. He tried sending presents and flowers and got nowhere. Here's the good news. Now that we started a podcast and wrote a book called New Jersey Divorce Experts, and he's reaching out to them saying, hi, I'd like to interview you for my book and my podcast. Now, all of a sudden, they're returning his phone calls. And the beauty is they're buying copies. They promote the podcast on their social media, and then they buy copies of the book because they're in them. And then they hand those books out to all their clients saying, look at me, I'm in a book. And then some of those clients go, oh, my lawyer told me, I guess I should talk to John. And he gets business out of it. So you want to think about, because number 4 on your action guide is having a podcast makes you a reporter. And number 5, reporters interview people. So who do you want to interview? You want to interview someone who has a whole bunch of your ideal clients, customers, or patients as their clients, so that when they tell them about you, those folks become your clients. Does that make sense? Interview the people who have your ideal clients as their clients so that you can get in front of them too. So again, iTunes is not a social network. It's a media platform. Oh, that is shameless picture of my wife and kids. That is Rebecca, my wonderful wife, and then Ella, Lily, and Max, our wonderful 3 kids. Bigger reason why I do this, I can't fit them all on one slide, but these are a few of the 750 third world entrepreneurs I've been able to loan money to through microloans, through kiva.org, to help them start or grow their businesses so they can get out of poverty. Because I believe entrepreneurs are going to save the world, not our government printing more money. So what are the steps to a successful podcast? Number 1, your podcast needs a concept and a name, and I'll show you some examples of that. You need interview questions, and number 6 on your worksheet, your action guide, are the 3 magic questions. You want to include these in your interview, in every interview. Number 1, what's your biggest challenge? Or question A is, what's your biggest challenge? Question B, what blank is on your bucket list? And now I don't know what that is for you, but for example, for Gary, our golf coach, the question is, what golf course is on your bucket list? And then question C, who do you want to play with? And you're going to change that, obviously. But for Gary, when someone says, I want to play St. Andrews, I have a vicious slice, and I'd love to play St. Andrews with BJ Singh. After the show, Gary says, hey, would you be open if I sent you some information about how I could get you on St. Andrews with BJ Singh for a weekend? As private, we play the course, just the 3 of us. And the guy goes, oh my God, yeah, send it tomorrow. And that's Gary. That's one of Gary's ways in the door to sell his 6-figure last golf lesson ever bucket list program. So, and then you want to book your first guest. And again, we talked about thinking strategically about who that guest might be. I'm going to give you a couple quick tips on how to get your podcast to rank higher in the App Store. I'm not going to give away everything, but I'll give you a little bit of the secret. So if you type in the search bar on the top right of the apps of the store, I typed in personal branding. So the top personal branding podcast is Life is a Marathon. But you'll notice when you click on it, that's not the real title. The real title is Life is a Marathon, Life Coaching, Self-Esteem, Personal Development, Personal Branding, Positive Thinking. And the author, the host of the show, isn't Bruce Van Horn. It's Bruce Van Horn, life coach, motivational speaker, thought leader, author, blogger, runner. Why is he using all of those words? They're keywords. They're keywords. He's ranking his show because he's got his keywords in the title and in his author name and a whole bunch of other places. And he's got 92 5-star reviews. But if you got nothing else, and just know that Apple is giving you all this free real estate for your title and your author name, and you used all the characters you've got, your show would instantly rank higher. Now, number 7 is your introduction, because again, your podcast is like a radio show on your phone. So radio shows have professional introductions. Rush Limbaugh doesn't introduce himself. There's a voiceover artist and there's music, and it sounds like a radio show. Your show needs to sound like a radio show. So your introduction should be a lead generation ad for your show. Got to tell them why they should listen. It should position you as the expert in your niche, and it should tell them what to do next. Do they go to your website? Do they sign up for a video series, a free ebook, a download? Do they go to Amazon? What do you want them to do? You need to record the show. People ask me every day, what about the technology? What fancy microphones do I need? You don't. There's literally a free iPhone app that'll do just fine. And I'm going to show you, I'll even show you how to use it. You're going to record the interview and you're going to get your introduction done. So if you go in the App Store, you type in call recorder, that's the app. You have to buy credits. That's the airtime, the minutes of recording time. You might spend $5 or $10 a month. It's not expensive. You hit the red button. You hit the contact button to pick the person you're going to call. When you get them on the phone, you hit the merge call button and you're recording. And then you hang up, and when you're done and it says you have a new recording, what do you want to do? And you say, email it to Seth and his team and they'll take care of it for me. You need cover art. Cover art is another ranking factor in the App Store. It has to be clean. Remember, they're looking at a tiny little thumbnail on their phones. So these are some examples of good ranking cover art. This is the LinkedIn for Business podcast by Ted Prodromo. You'll see we've got his title. We've got who he is. We've got a link to it. We've got his website. We've got a picture of Ted. We've got a mic so you know it's an audio podcast. And we've got a nice background. And Ted's podcast is the #1 LinkedIn podcast. This is Dr. Rick Jacomas. He's the #1 denture podcast. Notice it's got a picture of him, a mic, his title, who he is, and then some clean background with teeth. So you need the professionally produced introduction, and then you need a place to host your podcast to get it to iTunes. There's lots of places you can use. We like Libsyn. I am not an affiliate. I don't get paid for saying that. And then every time Libsyn, you upload a podcast to Libsyn, it will put it on iTunes for you, and you wash, rinse, and repeat. How you turn it into a book is you're going to transcribe every episode. You're going to edit it, and then you're going to write some chapters. You need an introduction, a foreword, a conclusion, and some chapters about you and your story and how fabulous you are and what your offer is and what you do for people. And then you've got a book. So that's the process. If you want us to do it for you, we will do all of it. We'll create your podcast, create the introduction. We'll do the marketing and find the guests for you. You don't even have to worry about it. We'll write your interview questions. We'll edit the audio and upload it to iTunes. Then we'll transcribe and edit every episode. We'll do the graphic design, layout, and publishing of your book in-house. You can buy books at our printing cost, no markup. We'll market and promote the book for you. Then we'll provide marketing materials for people in the book to send copies of the book to their customers, clients, and patients, driving a bunch of business back your way. All done for you. All you've got to do is show up once a week to do an interview for 20 minutes and be fabulous. And we'll even teach you how to be fabulous. Now, our secret sauce is the multi-step, multimedia, direct response marketing campaign to get those impossible to reach decision makers and thought leaders to do your show and be in your book. Because it's not as easy as picking up the phone, calling a stranger and saying, hey, want to do my book? It doesn't quite work that simple. I wish it did. And the direct mail campaign that goes from your guests to their clients to drive them back to you. We do all of this for you. If you had hired Dan Kennedy to write you all these campaigns, he would charge you right now $100,000 plus royalties in perpetuity. But you know you're not going to pay that. You're not even going to pay the $24,000 it would cost to just do the book part. If you went to a place like, there's some of our competition, Tucker Max, for $25,000, we'll do the book for you, no podcast. But the issue is they interview you for the book. So who's going to promote you? You're the only one, because the book's all about you. Part of our secret is there's a whole bunch of other people in the book that will promote it with you because they're in it. But you're not going to pay that either. But would it be worth it? I mean, first of all, I hope I'm inspiring you. I hope you're going to be our next success story. I hope either you'll do it on your own and tell me how well you did, or you'll let us do the work for you. Because if all it does for you is get you in front of your dream referral sources and prospects, would it be worth the $24,000 if that's what it cost? If it got your next book done or your first book done without you actually having to write it, would it be worth it? Of course it would. And if all it does is systematically get you new customers, clients, and patients, would it be worth $24,000 if you had to pay that? Of course it would, but you're not. We're doing we're doing a marketing test. And instead of our normal $2,000 a month for 4 months to get you a podcast and a book, we are doing a 50% off promotion. So $997 for 4 months, $4,000. You have a podcast done, a book done, and hopefully a ton of new business. Now, if you stick around after the book is done, not only will we keep doing more episodes and more books, but we'll throw you a book launch party where everyone who's in the book comes, does a big book signing, brings spouses, brings clients. We try and get the local media to cover it, and it's a really nice shindig. And then after that, we do a book mastermind group where and you can do this physically or virtually if you're national. Every month, everybody in the book gets together, talks about the book, talks about their business, swaps referrals back and forth, and you're the only one of your profession in that room. So if you're a lawyer and everyone in the book is a financial planner or an accountant, you're the only lawyer in the room. So all the legal referrals are going to come to you. So it works incredibly well to keep building that relationship and keep people working to promote you and your business. And we'll also throw in a month free of virtual assistant services from our friends over at 123 Employee. We'll do a great job helping you do lots of other stuff in your business. If you've ever wanted to test out a VA, you get a month of their time for free as part of our package. Plus, I also teach a Marketing Mastermind Group for 2 to 3 hours every single month of our cutting edge marketing content. Not just the podcast and the book, but literally everything we do for our clients that works. That's normally $2,364. I will give you access to the videos of it every month for free. So you get your podcast done, the introduction done, the guest done, the interview done, the audio done, iTunes done, cover art done, transcription and editing done, book writing done, book publishing done, book marketing done, all done for you. All you have to do is go to podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you, and you are good to go. That is where you can get all the rest of the details along with getting us to do it for you. Now, I did tell you that if you stayed till the end, I would show you how to get on my podcast for free. If you want to apply to be on our show in front of our listener base, you go to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast dash guests. That's podcast dash guests, and you can apply to be on our show. So I hope I have inspired you, and I look forward to seeing you at podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you.